Okay, remember that they're changing my voice. As far as Revelation 7 through 11, I'm just going to summarize it really quickly in this video because there's a lot of connections here between the mountains, the stars, okay, what the abyss is, what the locusts are, who the people that they're referring to first and foremost. There's a lot of connections here, and it just gets confusing. The nature of Revelation is to confuse people, right? We look at Genesis, for example, the Tower of Babel, okay? It makes it clear at the beginning of the book, and it's overkilled in Isaiah when he says that God made it so people don't really understand on purpose, okay? And that he allowed Satan to confuse people on purpose. It makes it clear that the Bible is part of the Tower of Babel, okay? And excuse me, part of the culture of the Tower of Babel, where they're trying to build a tower to the heavens so they could increase their power, and God didn't approve of it, as the story goes. So he made the Bible like a jigsaw puzzle, a riddle, like the riddle of the Sphinx, because he was afraid of what people, or he was concerned about what people might accomplish. Okay, and that has all kinds of dark occult implications into witchcraft and sorcery, magic arts. The idea of these things. Obviously, I don't believe in magic as in the cartoons. Right? Magic is simply science, technology, okay, poisoning, substances, psychology, psychiatry, these kind of things. Okay, and so in the Tower of Babel, baby El and El baby, they confuse things. Like a little baby in the world who's looking at the world saying, what's this, what's that's confused. As the child gets older, they start asking a bunch of questions because they don't know what's going on. So they want people to not know what's going on and to rely on them. Okay, so Revelation is a very strong example of how the Bible's made confusing on purpose. Now, there's a way to spend countless hours with countless people and to break down, every connection in the Bible to every aspect of Revelation. Okay, it's like for example, we were talking about martial arts. Okay, it's more than just and let's talk about Eastern martial arts, for example. In Eastern martial arts, it's more than just breaking bricks. They don't all break bricks. Okay, it's more than just stretching. There's so many aspects of it. So if I was going to explain Eastern martial arts to you, I could spend the rest of my life and not really effectively explain it, especially if I had to explain it using a book that's written in a way that's confusing on purpose, in a way that's poetic on purpose. So Revelation, like the Bible, is not meant to be fully understood by anybody, because it's like science. It's endless. The connections are endless. So what is the summary of it? Okay, so Revelation 8, okay, Revelation 7 again is 144,000 and a multitude, and basically it's figurative. They're not talking about literally 12,000 people. The 144 has significance. The number 12, the number 1,000 said to be the number of completion. There's all kinds of stuff like this in there, and it is not worth figuring out. It's basically saying that the people who are right with God, okay, are going to live a life where they're walking in the way of righteousness along the path of justice with the armor of God on, and so they're going to be affected less. And the 12 tribes represent different ideas, the different characteristics and aspects that they have. That's all that is, okay? There's no Jews who are actually going to be sealed in some kind of magical, Disney process or something. It's just, figurative. Okay, so as we get to Revelation 8, the seventh seal and the golden censer. When he opened the seventh seal, there was silence in heaven for about half an hour. And I saw the 7 angels who stand before God, and 7 trumpets were given to them. Okay, trumpets symbolize, I think first and foremost, they symbolize war. It's war and order, right? Trumpets before the king being played, trumpets before a battle. It's war and order, okay, and martial arts order. Another angel who had a golden censer came and stood at the altar. He was given much incense to offer with the prayers of all God's people on the golden altar in front of the throne. The smoke of the incense together with the prayers of God's people went up before God from the angel's hand. Then the angel took the censer, filled it with fire from the altar, and hurled it on the earth, and there came peals of thunder, flashes of lightning, and an earthquake. So again, earlier in Revelation, if you follow this series, they asked, how long is sovereign and true before you judge the inhabitants of the earth and avenge our blood? So these are the prayers of those who are actually loyal to God. They're not praying for petty things. They're praying for vengeance. They're praying to be, given heaven and so on and so forth. So what happens is the smoke with the incense, together with the prayers of God's people, went up before God from the angel's hands, and the angel took the censer, filled it with fire from the altar, and hurled it on the earth, and there came peals of thunder, flashes of lightning, and an earthquake. Okay? So again, the angel had a golden censer. He stands before the altar. Okay? He has much incense to offer with the prayers of God's people. Okay? So he's considering that, and his censer, and he's kind of, storing that. He's drawing that into himself. And then he turns around and fires at him. So love, when it comes into contact with wickedness, becomes a destructive force. Okay? It destroys the spirit of the wicked. It destroys their souls. It makes them pitiful. Okay? Because they're being pitiful in a world that's meant to be for the people with actual love and loyalty to God, they're made more pitiful, and eventually they're marshaled into hell, right? That's part of what the wind stands for, the marshaling force of God. Okay, so the trumpets. Then the 7 angels who had the 7 trumpets prepared to sound them. The first angel sounded his trumpet, and there came hail and fire mixed with blood, and it was hurled down on the earth. A third of the earth was burned up, a third of the trees were burned up, and all the green grass was burned up. So all the righteousness around there was burned up, all the kind of signs of life. The second angel sounded his trumpet, and something like a huge mountain all ablaze was thrown into the sea. A third of the sea turned into blood. A third of the living creatures in the sea died. A third of the ships were destroyed. So the mountain is, what is a mountain in nature? It's something that has you in awe. Something is a symbol of power. Something that's a symbol of fortification, of fortitude, of longevity. Okay, so a king has been described as a mountain, right? It's also a refuge where you retreat to if a place is getting attacked. So you can have the high ground and kind of prevent them from killing you, and a small group of people that decided to stand up. And there's all kinds of implications like this, right? There's, the 10 Commandments, and there's Mount Horeb, and there's Mount Zion, and so on and so forth. So the mountain is thrown in, the mountain that they think of as holy is thrown into the sea. Their idols, their energy, their spirit, their point of references, so they're exposed, right? Their skirts are pulled over their heads, so to speak. Okay, so a third of the creatures in the sea died, and a third of the ships were destroyed. The third angel sounded his trumpet, and a great star blazing like a torch fell from the sky on a third of the rivers and on the springs of water. The name of the star is Wormwood. A third of the waters turned bitter, and many people died from the waters that had become bitter. So here in Amos it says, you've turned justice into bitterness and cast righteousness to the ground. Amos 5 or Amos 6 or something. So what you see there is that the water that's supposed to be righteousness and justice and well-being in the living waters of God is God bitter at these people. It becomes a wrath because justice is to punish these people. Okay? And it's, when they say a third of it's turning, the whole world's going to be destroyed by the time they're through. So it's happening incrementally, and people aren't repenting of their deeds, right? They're not like, oh my gosh, what's happening? Okay? The fourth angel sounded his trumpet, and a third of the sun was struck, a third of the moon, and a third of the stars, so that a third of them turned dark, a third of the day without light, and also a third of the night. As I watched, I heard an eagle that was flying in midair call out in a loud voice, woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth, because of the trumpet blast about to be sounded by the other 3 angels. Okay, so this is why there's so much white supremacy, LGBT activity, why they're changing my voice, trying to make it so I sound gay. Because the white Jew and LGBT community are the main antagonists in the Bible. Okay, in the story, for whatever reason we'll say. So when you see more white culture being pushed on people, you see African culture disappearing, indigenous culture disappearing, okay, regardless of which Africans are evil, which indigenous people are evil or whatever, we see that the main antagonists, which is a key sign, okay, are spreading their satanic spirit, if you go by the story, we'll say, throughout the world. The white, Jew, and LGBT community. And Jesus said the kingdom of heaven will be taken away from you. Now they're more bitter. They're jealous, right? Satan, a deity of jealousy and deception. Like, no, salvation is from the Jews. Fuck you. Okay? And the Jews who want to be right with God are supposed to reject that, and to say, hey, that they're going to reject Israel as a state, as a nation state. They're going to reject being controlled opposition, pretending they're right with God just because they are outspoken against Israel. They're supposed to fall in line and obey God through me. You don't see that with the white Jew and LGBT community, not a single one of them, but you see them spreading their movements at record rates, right? You know, as I bring up all the time, 25% of Generation Z is said to identify as LGBT. That is a drastic increase in LGBT activity and identity. And that is a clear-cut sign of Sodom and Gomorrah, right? They called Israel the new Sodom, okay? Figuratively called Sodom, okay? So white culture, spirits, insistence on reproductive activity in a white way, you know, porn, kind of, you know, the different cultures, jocks, emos, corporate cultures, fake, polite cultures, right? Jewish, same thing, you know, and LGBT spirits, okay? Those are clear-cut signs that the world is transforming into the most evil state it's ever been in before it's sealed, right? 7 seals, trumpets, right? They're coming into the war spirit of the devil, okay? And they're being sealed in hell, and the earth is spiritually laid waste, okay? As Psalm says, the wicked go down the realm of the dead, all the nations that forget God, all the nations that surrounded me, but in the name of the Lord, I cut them down. They spiritually sink and become pitiful and then die and go off to eternal punishment. They try to confuse us because they never grew up. It's all the nations, right? America, Israel, okay, China, Russia, you name it, all the nations, okay? They edited that part, and I noticed it just now. I did not say all the nations that surrounded me. I said all the nations surrounded me. But in the name of the Lord, I cut them down. So yes, America is one of those nations.